How's everyone doing? I'm gonna give everyone just a little bit of time to roll in. Yeah, kind of taking just a little bit of time to make. Actually, I'm on time ish. 3 minutes late. 3 minutes late. What I really need is like a starting soon screen so that I don't have to start, like right at 4. It can have the starting screen, and then if it's like 3 past, it gives some people time to congregate as well because I don't feel like just jumping right into it because it literally just started. So I need to do that. I need to get a starting soon screen. It's on my list. So I will keep it on my list. I will keep it on my list. All right. So, what do we have to talk about today? I think a couple things. I think a couple things. So, one of the things that I want to talk about today, for those of you just starting to join in, was some of the a security topic that I found very interesting, and I think maybe some of us, especially maybe some of the ones in the DevSecOps, are going to find really interesting. And I think it's a topic that we really need to figure out how to deal with. Something that maybe isn't dealt well with today. Really, I just have a little bit of news. Very little actually. It was pretty light. I have some things to go over that I think you guys might find interesting. There's a couple things that I found interesting, and thus I'm going to share with them with you. A article that I disagree with, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit because I think that it brought up some valid points. Yeah, some valid points. Maybe the conclusion. Sometimes I disagree with the conclusion, but that's normal. We need to come up and talk about these things. And yeah. Uh so so yeah, we'll get into that. Are we ready? Should we just jump into it? All right, we're going to jump into it. First thing is security, like usual. But this time we're going to talk about something that I've wanted to talk about. Um, yeah, I wanted to talk about it. Um, Check this out. This was a piece of research. Hey, Russell. I'm gonna link it to you guys. I'll share my desktop really quickly here. This was a piece of research here, done by JFrog. And I feel like probably more people than just us have had to deal with this. but it was actually really interesting to go over because I feel like people have felt the pain of this. So JFrog's security team did a lot of research, and there's a lot here, and I'm not going to tell you that I read all of it really well. I read the highlights and then I skimmed through the rest of it. I actually probably need to run a little bit I need to do a little bit more in depth, but let's just look over the highlights up here. So there's a glossary just in case you don't know what some of these words mean. But a CVE is a common vulnerability and exposures. CVSS is a common vulnerability scoring system. Just how it's the 0 to 10. Almost nothing is a 10. Most things are 9.8. But we have seen a few 10s. Then there's the excuse me. Then there's the JFrog security. This is basically what their security team gave it, and it just has 4 levels: low, medium, high, and critical. Affected artifacts is basically their artifactory. It's the artifacts in their artifactory. And then the MVD severity. And again, MVD is just like the words that represent the CVSS. So the CVSS is 0 to 10. The MVD is none from 0, 0.1 to 0.3, or basically 0.4 is low, medium, high, critical. All right, so cool. This all makes sense. The summary is the thing that's really interesting and I wanted to talk about. And basically, what JFrog is saying here is that most of the things that get really critical, they said the top 50, were actually rated higher than they should have been. And the reason that they're rated higher than they should have been is the criticality up here, getting this 9.0 is basically the end result of the hack. So if you can completely take over a server using this hack, then it will get a 10. But it doesn't take into effect the number of things that has to be present to actually execute that attack. So, you could be like, well, they would have to have a high-powered quantum computer, physical access to the machine, and as well as this specific type of memory, and then they could hack the machine. Those are kind of like the how hard it is to actually implement the attack. And basically, JFrog is going into that too many things are getting too critical that aren't actually that critical. Now, I made that up, like that scenario, that specific scenario. But they go into a lot of these where, like, a lot of package maintainers. So we'll talk about Ubuntu, we'll talk about Red Hat, and those where the vulnerability doesn't actually affect them. So just because, and I'll give you a real example. I used in a project, this is not open source, so I can't show it to you, but I used Kubernetes APIs. But I used nothing of Kubernetes. The problem with this is none of the CVEs that hit Kubernetes affected me because I didn't use, I literally was using their structs, just a few of their structs. And that was all. But because I imported the project, but used nothing of it except for those structs, I was hit with all of their CVEs. And so I would have to deal with them or write that we weren't hit by them and do all of this. And so basically it kind of thrashed us a little based off of those CVEs. So anyways, they go on to their key findings. This is what I read. A majority of vulnerabilities detailed in this report were not as easy to exploit as reported by public sources, and hence undeserving of their high undeserving of their high NVD severity ratings. Now, I generally don't think people take security as importantly as they need to. So I'm kind of torn on this because I don't want to tell people not to take it more. I think that this is more of a call out that maybe our rating system isn't as robust as it needs to be. And it has some improvements that can go on to it. So I think that was the biggest takeaway for me is I'm hoping that in the security community, this kind of maybe starts leading towards that where a high doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard project, but I found that this was really interesting. So go ahead and check it out. I linked it below. What do you guys think? All right, let's talk about AWS. We're already jumping into our clouds. I didn't see that much else in security. I'm probably missing something. If you did, drop a link in chat, and we'll talk about it. Always feel free if we're on a subject, drop a link, even if I end up covering it because I already had it, but you found that it was important, and make sure that it gets covered. So if there was a huge data breach or something like that that we need to know about, and you already knew about it, go ahead and drop that link in chat while we're talking about the subject. All right, AWS released something interesting. AWS released this. The general availability of Amazon EKS Anywhere on Snow. Now, if you don't know what Amazon EKS Anywhere is, it's this. It's EKS, effectively. It's their open source distribution of EKS, which is the same as the one that they run. Now, the one that they run internally has some stuff to manage the distribution, so it's not the exact same as EKS, but it's the actually same distribution as far as I know. So, EKS Anywhere, you can run this on your server. You can run this in your home if you wanted to. Go for it. AWS Snowball is accelerate moving offline data to, or remote storage to the cloud. So AWS Snowball is basically really edge. And it's kind of interesting. They have announcing the general availability of Amazon EKS Anywhere on Snow. So this is an interesting service. I don't think a ton of us are going to need it. I know that I couldn't think of an actual reason for me to invest in this, but it's actually really interesting how they are developing this type of thing. So this is some beautiful poetry, lost on all the nerds' ears, but yeah, I actually found this pretty funny. So here's your edge compute. This is fantastic. Okay, so I did have a friend that had their a friend, their computer got peed on, but anyways, that's all I was thinking here. How funny that would be. But anyways, so yeah, this is the general availability of EKS Anywhere on Snow. I don't know. I know that people have run Kubernetes on the edge. I know there's people like Chick-fil-A, I believe it was Chick-fil-A, we can look that up, who had a pretty cool article on how they use Kubernetes on the edge inside each store because they had multiple nodes running on each store as like an edge network. I know that people like, although they wouldn't actually talk to me about it, but I do know from what I could surmise, the same can be said for Home Depot. Craziest story, Home Depot literally went to KubeCon, wouldn't hand me socks until they could sell me coming to work for Home Depot, but they weren't allowed to tell me anything about why I would want to work at Home Depot. Nothing about their stack. Nothing. Except that they use Kubernetes. It was very weird. Anyways, that was a little while ago. That was like 2018, 19, 18 maybe. Anyways. So I'm interested in how people are leveraging Kubernetes at the edge, and I think these are really interesting things. Even if you're not like, again, I don't use Amazon Snowball, and yeah, I don't have a use for this. I do find it really interesting to watch. So I like seeing that. It's pretty cool. If you didn't know, Amazon EKS Anywhere is open source distribution of Kubernetes. It is. So you can go check it out. It's actually really nice that it is an open source distribution because you can run it locally. So if you're used to EKS, you can run EKS anywhere. That's the idea. Very original name. Love it. Love it. All right, let's move on to GCP. Logs for network load balancing and logs for internal TCP UDP load balancing. So basically this is the logs around all their load balancing. It's now generally available. I know we talked about this. I feel like it was like 6 months ago when they came out with it originally. Maybe it was even longer. But it's now GA, not a big deal there. And the interesting thing here was the newly published Anthos Hybrid Cloud Architecture Reference Design Guide. So I pulled this up. I'm going to drop this in chat as well. So this is, again, going to those hybrid clouds. EKS Anywhere isn't really a hybrid cloud, except it gives you the same style of Kubernetes cluster. Anthos is very much pushing for this hybrid cloud where you get to manage it the exact same way and get some GKE services on your own bare metals, and you have to pay Google for them. I'm not entirely thrilled with the hybrid cloud solutions that are out there now, but I do like watching where these are going. And so they have a reference architecture now. The other big thing before this, there was no really good reference architecture. Everyone was kind of blazing their own trails, and everybody that you talk to kind of did it in a different way. So I think that I say smaller teams. I don't think a small team should actually do hybrid architectures. Let me be clear. But if you are a smaller team for doing a hybrid, I think having a reference architecture is really, really powerful. This way you don't have to blaze your own trail. And they did a fairly good job. I feel like they didn't do enough without downloading the PDF. You can go download the PDF, which goes into much more detail. I hate it when they make me download something, though. Like, why not put it right here? But it's a fairly good reference architecture with your on-premise data center and how Anthos does it. So I am actually really liking this. Really liking this. And this is something I actually need to get better about myself. It's like design patterns and some other stuff that I want to publish for you all, because I think this is the type of stuff people need as a reference. Let's go references. And I want to do it more generically, I guess, is mine. Like, hey, if you want to do multi-cloud, here's a reference thing. Because what I dislike about these, and this isn't a fault on their own, because this is their cloud, is I'd like the reference architectures to be more generic. Like, okay, this is generically how you're going to do it. We're not going to talk about the connect gateway. We're going to talk about your tunnel and just call it that and be done. We're going to talk about, how you do global load balancing between the two. Those are the types of reference architectures I want to start publishing sometime, because I think they could be really powerful. All right. Now, I could not pass this up because we've had some major tech firms who, let me be clear. I think that there is something to being in person. I love being in person. And I think it's really important for full remote teams to be partially, make sure you spend 2 to 4 weeks together. I think that's really important. And some will point to like the hallway conversations, the water coolers. You can't have them. And I think that if you're not having those as a remote team, you're doing it wrong. And you're not encouraging that collaboration, because I know that I do that. I do things like office hours where I have a public room where people can just join. You have to be explicit about it. You have to actually try to do it, but you can do it. And maybe I need to actually make a series of videos on that, because maybe people are just oblivious to actually how to do it. And that's fine. But if you demand that people come back to the office, you have to upfront the cost of it. You cannot be hypocritical and say you need to come back to the office, but, really, we don't want to pay for your desks. Really? Now, I have not been able to confirm this myself. I talked to 2 people I know that work at Google, and I didn't. Now, they don't actually work. Unfortunately, they work in the Seattle office, not in the ones in Mountain View. So I couldn't confirm this myself, but I did try. I did the very minimum to try. And so, yeah, there is that. They're going to have to not be at the same desk at the same day. I find this hilarious. And slightly sad. All right. We'll take a shot at Azure because my only shot was that they really didn't release anything of interest um, at all. Lamest week. Actually, the week between Christmas and New Year's was way lamer. They did do some things, but yeah, there was nothing. Like, this didn't really look interesting at all. So yep, nothing. So shame on them. Shame on them. All right. Now, I know that if you had asked me 2, 3 years ago, I would have said DigitalOcean was one of the better small cloud providers if you just wanted to do something as like an individual, hacking around, doing some stuff. That being said, it has been brought to my attention and I've actually reviewed some cases. So some of you have been kind enough to share your own experiences with me, and I would encourage you guys to do it because I've actually followed up with these companies. Oh, I have a follow up that we need to talk about. I have a follow up that's very good that we need to talk about. I'm gonna pull it up, but I do follow up with these things, and I try to I try to hold the companies accountable. Now, I don't have the most power to hold those companies accountable, but I do try. So what I wanted to follow up with was that Bitwarden did come through and they have updated how many hashes are done. I'm trying to look for it on their website. Okay, I can't find it really quickly, but they did update their salting. Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. Let me share this. So I know that I reported that Bitwarden hadn't actually updated theirs to meet the new salting, but they did actually do it. I mean, they updated within a couple weeks of the standard being updated, so I think that's pretty good. Um, so it is now up to the 600,000. They actually do one iteration over on the client side. They only do 100,000 still on the server side when it's stored, but that does meet. Yeah. Okay, so and then there's this. The number of default iterations used by Bitwarden has increased in February of 2023. So again, a couple weeks after I covered the news and requested their comments. Account created after this time will use the 600,000. There is a typo here. It's 600,000. I have verified that independently. However, if you created an account prior to this, then you should increase the iteration count. So basically, what you need to do, and I'm not going to show you my vault. You can go check this out so that there will be some there are some instructions, but you can go into the application and increase it. So they don't increase it automatically, and that's because there's some manual steps. And basically, you need to back up your data before you do it, because if you do something wrong, you could actually lose access to your vault. So there is no automatic update. That's kind of a shame. But if you have an account beforehand, you can go ahead and do this and update your iterations to the 600,000. So I just wanted to update you guys because I know that we had talked about it. Anyways, I said that, and I had forgot about that. That was actually on my it was on my email to do list. And I check that every once in a while. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about was DigitalOcean. I keep getting disturbing things, and there is no one thing. Everything that they do has some merit one way or another. One of the things that I investigated kind of heavily was they kind of treated somebody poorly for some, like they had some machines and they were testing like a crypto thing that they were doing. They weren't actually part of a public crypto net. They were just testing locally, effectively. Um, and their terms of service don't specifically say that they can't do that, but it does say that they can't, in theory. And I'm not a big fan of crypto, but there was some shadiness with like, were they really abusing it? It didn't really seem like it. Anyways, I keep seeing these little things come up like this. I read this. Don't sell your indie business to DigitalOcean. And I was like, oh, what the clickbait? I have to read it because it's clickbait. And they're so good at it, and I'm so bad at it. I gotta learn to do this. But this one actually was more compelling than I thought it was going to be. This was, it's not even that long. I'm gonna drop this in the chat for you all. It's not even that long, but it was more compelling than I thought it was going to be. Basically, DigitalOcean has gone through and bought up a lot of really small companies. So Scotch.io is the one that this person is talking about. There is a new one that they bought. It was the CSS tricks. So they just recently bought the CSS tricks, and basically they buy these smaller companies to try to win over those devs. The problem that this person, and I don't know this person, Winton, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but what the problem that Winton is going into is they're gone. They're not redirected to a DigitalOcean. He couldn't find them on DigitalOcean, so he basically looked for the articles that he had saved in bookmarks, and he couldn't actually find those in DigitalOceans either. And so basically all of the Scotch.io stuff on AngularJS, which who really wants AngularJS, is gone. And he's worried that they could do the same type of thing to CSS tricks. And he does talk about the argument of CSS tricks is a larger community. It would be harder if they tried to do something like that. Anyways, I don't know. It's just another like, that kind of stinks. Other large companies do it too. Don't get me wrong. They're not the only person. Just saying. Then there was this. I don't know who Snowball is, but my account got locked on DigitalOcean looking for hosting. Yep. Unfortunately, they're very when they do kick you, they don't really tell you why. So yeah. They don't necessarily tell you why. So anyways, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Akamai, and they bought Linode. So this is why we have to do the Null Cloud. We need a real developer-focused cloud. That's just what we need. Because I don't know. I still like Linode. So far, Akamai hasn't done anything to really annoy me. All right. Let's talk about GitHub. We have a couple things. Actually, this is actually a pretty good week for. Yeah, sometimes businesses just go bad and you just need to walk away from them. And that's a sad truth. Sometimes we get sold on ones that were like, this really was the best thing when it came out. And sometimes they make a misstep, and I think that you need to get over the misstep. Ubiquity has made blunders. Don't get me wrong. I still think for what they are, they're still the best thing that you can get for the price, for the money, and they have walked back on some of those blunders. They released analytics with no way to turn it off. We've talked about this before. And they walked back on that. And they said sorry. So I'm not saying I'm not saying that they're perfect, and I don't hold them in as high of esteem as some. But, at the same time, I don't think that they've gone bad as a whole. Now, I could be wrong. I try to keep an open mind on those types of things. But sometimes it's just like misstep after misstep after misstep, and then it's impossible to be perfect as a company. So we need to all, be okay with that. I'm not perfect as a YouTuber. We all know that. We all know that. All right, moving on. Let's talk about GitHub. Trending repositories on GitHub feed. I actually think that this is pretty cool. I know some people were actually upset about it, but it's come out of preview, so you don't have to opt into it. I think it's pretty cool. You can get where your main page on GitHub has some trending repositories, and you can see like some new stuff that comes out. So I think it's kind of an interesting topic. It's making GitHub a little bit more social, which, you know what? I've always said that open source is about your communities. So I actually think if you're pushing open source, that makes a ton of sense for GitHub to be more social. Some people don't like that, and that's fine. That's their opinion. You can also disable it, so it's also not a big deal. I actually like it. But there's actually some more stuff that's coming out. So JetBrains Writer, for all of you JetBrains people, gets code spaces support. Code spaces support. I don't know. That's difficult to say for me. So if you do use JetBrains, I don't. That's probably a big deal. And you use code spaces. I guess you have to use both of those things. I don't use either, so it doesn't really affect me. This, I think, is actually huge. I love this. The new Forks page view. The Forks page has been one of the worst travesties of GitHub for a long time. And basically now it gives you some better ability to view forks. So here, yep, I accidentally scrolled down too far. So it gives you some better views, some better control over it. I actually think that this is pretty fantastic. Fantastics? It's pretty fantastic. And the last thing that GitHub did that I think is fantastic, and we've talked about 2 weeks ago, no more waitlist. Code search and code view are available for all in public beta. So we talked about how this was rewritten in Rust and how they made a ton of improvements, but you couldn't quite use it yet because you had to be on a waitlist, and I'm not big enough to get into those waitlists. So I hadn't gotten it to use it until just recently, but it's fantastic. So your search is now way better. You can get to see the paths on the side. Check out this beautifulness. I've heard only good things about it, and the little bit of experience I've had with it at this point is amazing. I can also tell you that I think the old search is broken. Russell and I were searching the other day trying to find something with the old search, and I wasn't getting anything, even though we knew folders and things like that had the name. We were looking for metadata in Kubernetes, and there was files with that name, and that word's in code as well, and it was just completely broken. So I think actually old code search is broken. And I wasn't on this yet. So anyways, it is a huge improvement. Go opt in. You do still have to opt in. You have to go because it's in beta. It doesn't automatically opt you in. So go check that out. Go check it out. Become modern. Join the rest of us. I don't even need an ID anymore. I just use GitHub. Not true. Not true. That was a lie. All right. That's it for cloud news that I had. But I do have some more controversial news. We're going to talk about something Ubuntu did. Now, as you all probably know, Ubuntu is usually my daily driver. I've had a lot of success with it. I like it as a distribution. I think it's pretty stable. I can do what I want as a dev and not worry about it. So I like it. Ubuntu is also one that has had missteps, but I think those missteps are generally only because they have one of the largest communities, and it's impossible to make everyone in a community happy. They've had a lot of missteps. They make little missteps all the time. Anyways, but yeah, I really like Ubuntu. Um, the rest of us. Oh no, that needs to be a shirt too. All right. So in general, I think that they do a fairly good job. Um, they have some controversial news. Ubuntu flavors agree to stop using Flatpak. Now, right now, I'm going to stop you and say this doesn't mean you can't install Flatpak and it's not available in the repository. I have used Flatpak on the base Ubuntu, just the standard long term support for many years. It's available under the Universe repo. It's basically, you can just apt install it on anything, unless you don't install the Universe repos, I mean, of course. But, anyways, it's amazing and works just fine. And that's not changing. What they are doing right now is Canonical and the lead developers of, I think it's like the 8 minor distributions that are built on top of it, have all agreed to stop shipping Flatpak installed. They're not going to uninstall it if you upgrade. They're not going to change any of that. And they're not going to stop you from installing it. They are just using apt and snap as base install experiences. You uninstalled? Okay. So this was going to go into mine. I love Flatpak as a concept. I do. I've hated using Flatpak every single time I've used it. I actually hate Snap as well. And I'll get into why I don't like them. But I actually think Snap is probably my favorite over the two. It usually works, but I'm also usually on Ubuntu, so it works a little bit nicer for me. But and Ubuntu does support Snap as their thing, so that kind of makes sense. But yeah. Now, you guys know that my current daily driver is Arch. My work PC is Ubuntu. Again, I like the stability. I like the familiarity. I just use it to work, not hack around on. Now, why they did this, they were saying that it was to give a more unified approach because Snap is so well supported on it. I think that I disagree. They're not blanket banning Flatpak. Now, I think that the person that posted this article came up with some really good points, like that the different flavors of Ubuntu are there to be different flavors. So if they want to do Flatpak because that's their flavor, that should be fine. The only thing that I would counter that with, I think it's a valid point and a valid argument. The only thing I would have to say is it's still supposed to be a flavor of Ubuntu. And Ubuntu, if you said that you started to use, AUR packages, it's not really a flavor of Ubuntu anymore. It's almost something completely different. So there has to be some minimal set. I don't know what that is. I'm not saying it's Snap and apt. I'm saying that there is generally this idea that a distribution is based off of its distribution. And by that I mean like Ubuntu is basically Ubuntu because of its apt packages that you get and its snap packages. So I could also make the argument where a distribution is based off of where you pull its packages. And if you're not pulling its packages from Universe and you're not pulling it from Snap, are you really actually running Ubuntu? And my answer would be probably not. Add Pac-Man for better Ubuntu. Hey, happiness for all. Thank you for the follow. As you know, I don't have alerts on this channel yet, and for that I am deeply sorry. It is on my list of things to make, and I say this every single time there's a follower. Thank you for following. I appreciate it. You are appreciated. You didn't get an alert, so you're not that appreciated, but that's my bad. I do appreciate you that much. I just haven't done it. Thank you. All right. So, anyways, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts? I'm torn. I literally could argue it either way. Like I said, I kind of think that the packages and where you get them are kind of what makes a distribution to me, a Linux distribution. I know that there's a little more to that of how you package your kernel and blah blah blah. I get it. I get it. But I think it's a lot of it. So I would almost make the argument that I think like it's a good thing because it aligns what Ubuntu is. Everything else is a little bit different. And it doesn't stop them from using Flatpak. Again, if they banned Flatpak, that would be a whole nother thing. All right, It's been a while since Linus Torvalds has gotten really spicy. He is a little notorious for being a jerk. Um, I'm not calling him out. He said it himself. So I think it's fair. And he actually took a step away from Linux for a little while because he was getting really, really salty. Really salty for people that were giving their time to do stuff. Anyways, he kind of returned to it a little bit. This was a little salty. He was not happy with some of the pull requests. Yeah. This was maybe needed, but it was definitely. Now the interesting thing is this actually got merged in. Because it was actually important. But it is actually good advice. So I actually sit by it. Generally, I think that you should do this privately first. And if that doesn't work, then you can do it publicly. I don't know if he tried to do it privately. Maybe he did. I think that's actually one of the things. Just because it's an open source doesn't mean that you need to openly berate people. I 100% always go privately to somebody. I say 100%. Sometimes I have conversations, and that happens. But in general, you try to go privately to the person to solve the issue. Or you make a thing that is completely away from this. So you make a blog post about what is good etiquette, and you never link to any of this. Because that way you're just saying, hey, this is what I expect out of a PR. So I don't necessarily support this, but I actually do think, and I'm going to put this in the chat for people. I do think that as far as general, like, if you're trying to make a commit to open source, this is valid. There's never an excuse for merges without explaining why those merges exist. Why do you want to input that thing? What is the reason for the code that you're in? And if you can't come up with a good reason, then the code isn't well defined. It's not well defined code if you can't define it well. There you go. You heard it from me. Well, you actually heard it from the Torvalds himself. All right. Another interesting blog article I read. Is Docker still worth learning for IT operations teams? Probably not. I disagree with this person. If you didn't know. Now, their argument here is that Docker tooling is effectively dead. There's a lot of open source things that you can use, like Kubernetes or like Podman, and you can use those. But I would say predominantly, Docker is used. If you're talking about GKE, if you're talking about AWS, yeah, AWS EKS Anywhere, you want to talk about AWS Bottle Rocket, you want to talk about, or EKS Bottle Rocket, if you want to talk about AKS, they all use Container D, not Podman. Developers on their machines predominantly use Docker. There are some that use Podman, and that's fine. It's a valid choice, and I'm happy with it. You want to know what's it running in production, though? It's probably Container D. So if you want to learn what's out there, that's great. Go for it. If you want to learn how to actually debug the stuff that's running in your production, you probably still should run and learn Docker. And he throws Docker tooling like and okay, I'm not really getting onto this person. They have an opinion. They're I don't know the person, and they're allowed to have it. I just disagree, and I wanted to like express that some way. I didn't think about like making a video about it was worth it, but like they talk about like Docker Compose as not being that useful, or Docker Swarm, and I would agree. Docker Swarm is dead. Dead as a doornail. Don't use Docker Swarm. Don't learn Docker Swarm. Docker Compose, I think, can be useful. I think there's better alternatives like Tilt that can help you, but oh wait, Tilt is owned by Docker. Oh gosh. So if you're talking about the Docker tools, there are some of the best tools to do to use. And they have a plethora of tooling out there. So I would just adamantly disagree. But what are your guys' thoughts? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. What do you think? Do you think that Docker tools are dead? Do you think Tilt is garbage? Docker Compose? Anybody? Doesn't just have to be me. My opinions. I'm sharing my opinions. You can share yours too. This is a pseudo safe place. Russell will make fun of you, but he makes fun of me too. All right. Last article I'm going to drop here for you all. The NSA released best practices for securing your network. You guys got to see these. This is amazing. I do believe this was made for your standard American, is what I'm going to say. Would be interesting when they moved to Podman. Was it right after they started to charge for Mac support? I don't know. Right. Docker started to charge if you made over a couple $1,000,000 or something like that. And I guess Docker Desktop is another tool. I know that a lot of people still use Docker Desktop. I have never used Docker Desktop, but I do use the Docker command line. And I think like that's another thing that I would say is really valuable is like the Docker command line is actually really easy. I also use nerdctl when I want to work with just container D locally, and that's fine. But I'm still using Docker tools. So I guess there is validity that there are tools that you don't need from Docker. If you're talking about Docker Desktop, no, you don't need Docker Desktop. Is it still the most convenient and easiest to use? Yes. Do they charge for it? Yes, but they also, nobody was paying them. I do feel bad for them because no one was paying for their services, and they revolutionized containers. Yeah, I know. The number of professional developers who were outraged for paying for software. I know. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. And I don't have the right answer. And, you know, I feel like I would like to talk about it more, but I also feel like I would get canceled for talking about it because I'm not in one camp or the other. And like saying that the engineers at Docker deserve to be paid is for some reason I'm doing something wrong. Now obviously there's better ways to monetize and worse ways to monetize, and some companies make blunders while trying to monetize, but they are trying. And this is where I feel like you need to also work with companies where it's like, you made a blunder, you tried something, that sucks. Don't do that. Elon Musk, I'm looking at you. I'm looking right at you right now. I don't know where you are. You're right there. I'm looking at you, Elon. Anyways, that being said, yeah. Anyways, I think Docker has done a lot of good stuff. I think they have a lot of good tools. There are some that are garbage. I don't like Swarm. Now, Swarm was simpler. I think actually a lot of people could have used Swarm and been just fine. And it's simpler than Kubernetes and worked, but it was just kind of late. And so then it didn't have all the tools built on top. And that's fine. That's fine. You use the site to track his flight to find out where he is. That's okay. I don't want to get on Elon Musk's bad side. I've already enraged enough people today. So, anyways, yeah, I don't know. I do feel like probably I'll start talking about it more because I think it's an issue that needs to be solved if our open source communities are going to survive. I put a lot of work and I don't get paid for a lot of work. And thankfully, you know what? I have a good job where I don't need that. But would it be great to be able to support open source that people were using and get to do that as my job? Yeah, it would be great. And a lot of people are really outraged to pay for it. All right. Let's jump into this. I was hoping to get an in-depth. I was. But unfortunately, it wasn't quite what I was looking for. These best practices ranged on okay, so they said your home network. And then they were like, oh, let's upgrade to a modern operating system. I guess, yeah. Update to better routing devices. WPA3. I think it's great. This is one which is the shortest paragraph, and I feel like no one except IT professionals that have already done this know how to do this. Unless if your access device has a make a guest network button, do they actually know how to make different segregated networks? I don't think so. Anyways, I posted a link. You guys should read it. You probably should actually try to get your friends and family to read it because I think it has some really good stuff if you don't know. I think all of us would probably think all of this is pretty standard practice. I have 12 networks, 12 different networks. So yeah, I think we should do our part to actually distribute this, not because of us, but because of people that we know. 2 things left. Raffle with a lull. Rewriting an Nginx module in Rust. I'm going to post this in chat because you all need to read this. I mean, obviously, I love this. I was going to talk about the things that they did and how this was a classic Cloudflare blog that went into a ton of detail on things like performance, memory safety, bug reports over time, and expressiveness of Rust and how it allowed them to basically do this, no mangling of the C symbols for exporting or dealing with Nginx and made everything clean. I would love to just talk about how, amazing it is for them. And how, yeah, they have a future without Nginx. But I want you guys to go and read about it yourselves because it was a fantastic blog on it. Now, obviously, I love Rust. I love how they talk about how one of the reasons was because of Cloudbleed. If you guys don't know, Cloudbleed was one of their big security incidents, which I think they handled really, really well. And you should definitely read up on that if you don't know what I'm talking about. But basically, because of Cloudbleed, they've been moving off of non-memory safe languages. And so they've done a lot of Rust, and this is actually a really, really good article on the, I'm going to say, the pleasures, some of the pains of moving such a critical component to Rust. So go read it. And the very last thing that we're going to talk about, very excited about it, been working hard on it. You're going to see this over the coming weeks, but we're all going to rebrand a little. We all are. I'm specifically going to a little. I'm pretty happy with this. I'm actually really happy with this. I think this is really cool. Wanted to show it off. You'll be seeing some more stuff, not just this, but been working hard on it. I think this looks really great. I think learn something new. 1 second, you gotta. There we go. Learn something new, which is what I really want us to be doing. Is just to learn something new. That's what I want my videos to be about. I think this is fantastic. I'm super excited about it. So you'll be seeing that on YouTube. You'll be seeing that here. You'll be seeing that around. I don't know whether... Yeah, I might just name this stream Merit Counts. Not sure. Because it's just a stream. But the stuff that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be doing it like this. I think it's fun. We should have fun. I'm going to be releasing a video on why null. Because it's been something that people have asked me a lot, and there's actually a really big reason behind it. So I'm making a pretty big video that's kind of like a documentary-esque video about null, where it came from. There was a big, the multi-billion-dollar mistake article released from the person that created the word null, and why I disagree from a fundamental level with him. And yeah. So anyways, I'm pretty excited about it. How do you guys like it? I think it's I think the beaker, the test tube with the null. I don't know. I like it. I think we're gonna have some fun this year, and whatnot. So, anyways, yeah. The last thing that I was going to ask you guys about was, how do you like my Rust class so far? I've been looking at it. I've been looking at other classes. A lot of other classes. So, like, in this last one, I probably had an extra 4 minutes added onto it because every step of the way we ran the code to see what it would look like. And I think I like that, but I'm wondering if the more streamlined is better, where, like, you don't spend as many times I'll get to your okay. Anyways, there some other people's courses are a little bit more streamlined because they don't remove a lot of, like, let's run this and let's iterate on it. But I kind of liked the iterating. I liked the, let's try this thing, let's try that thing, but it does make the videos a little bit longer. They're not quite as streamlined. So I wanted to know what your guys' thoughts were. Please keep please let me know what you think, and think about that with some of the next ones, because I can make them shorter and more streamlined. This is an if statement. This is an else statement. This is why you shouldn't use those, but not actually show them running, because that's what I did. And again, I thought that was good, but maybe people would prefer it not. I don't know. What do you guys think? Current gen AI to be the next multi-trillion-dollar mistake. That's Oh, Russell, this is going to make you excited. I think so. Camera's right here, looking straight at it. I think I'm going to try to get it set up where my iPad is right here, so I can look at you guys while reading chat. I think that's going to be good. All right, well, I will take your guys' silence as there couldn't be a better educational class out there. That's what I'll take it as. If you do have feedback later on, join the Discord. Let me know what it is. Let me know how you feel about those types of things. Obviously, if your response is that I need more animations to make it more better, I know. We need comments to be beamed directly into your eyes. I feel like that would be painful, but you can talk to Elon Musk. I've heard that he's working on that. And if you'd like to go first, I'll try it after you, Russell. All right. Well, I'm going to let you guys get going. Join me Tuesday. Tuesday, I am going to release a little thing on the Null Cloud. I've iterated a little bit on it since the last time that we've talked, and we're gonna work on assembly line. I've been working a little bit this weekend on my PR that I opened up yesterday. It's gonna be a little bit better. And if you want to learn what that is, yeah, no neural link for me either. I was teasing. I said you first, obviously. If you'd like to learn more about what that is, join me on the live streams. Love to have you guys here. Yeah. Well, again, I'd love the feedback on the last lessons too, because I was looking at it and I realized I do it a little bit differently than the rest of everybody. And I didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Like, is everybody else in the know of how these classes work? And that's better. You know, I cut out compiling time and stuff, so it kind of jumped and moved quickly. But I don't know if that was enough or the right thing to do. So, anyways, yep, I'm not gonna let his doctors cut into my brain either. Beyond just the idea beyond the idea of having something that can interface with my brain, which I'm probably not okay with either. Beyond that, I'm also not okay with letting somebody cut into my head for fun. You know, obviously, like, if you have a tumor or something, like, go for it. Like, that is like the last resort. But beyond that, that's like, I also don't let people do open heart surgery on me. If you need it, you need it, and that's fine. It's a last resort, though. Yeah, I did cut out the compiling. I showed extra stuff. Like, I ran it each time. I showed the results, which takes more time. But I'm starting, like, maybe I'm second guessing myself when I was like, maybe that's time people don't want to see. Like, maybe if I explain it well, it's obvious what the result will be. And really, all I'm doing is proving that I know what I'm talking about. So I don't know. That was some of the doubts on mine. So I would love to hear from you all. I know I trust you guys pretty much for your honest feedback of, like, is that good or is it bad? Because maybe it's bad. If you need open heart surgery, don't go into a Tesla dealership to get it done, though. Yeah, not medical advice here. But yeah, all right. Well, anyways, bask your eyes on this. I think it turned out really well. I'm excited about it. Thank you all for joining me, hanging out. Thanks for chipping in and chatting. Remember, I know it is really fancy. It's super cool. I feel legitimate. I don't get legitimacy off of how many likes or views my videos get. It's how awesome my logo is. I'm a horrible person. All right. Anyways, see you all later. Bye.